take a look at this image and say what colors you see. Hopefully, most of you will see yellow and green. If not, I'm sorry to say you might be blind. However, that's what you see. What would a bird see? Well, they'd see the image like this. And while we're at it, let's look at what a bee might see. It's pretty different from the original image. The number of colors that a human can see is minimal, but what exactly causes this object to produce this color, and why have we evolved to see it this way? To answer the first half of this question, we have to look at the sky towards the sun. This star gives off a white light made of tiny particles called photons. The photons within this white light all travel within this stream in waves, all of which have different wavelengths. The differences between these is what gives us color, with one representing red, another representing blue, and so on and so forth. So yeah, white light is made up of multiple colors. This is best shown in Isaac Newton's experiments on light in the 1600s, where he shined white light through a prism. The resulting light reflection produced a rainbow, which is made up of all the different colors. This is where this image comes from for any Pink Floyd fans out there. Getting back on track though, once this white light reaches Earth and hits anything, it interacts with substances known as pigments. These substances interact with the light by absorbing or stopping most wavelengths and reflecting others. Pigments come in many different forms, each of which reflects a different wavelength. This reflected wavelength then interacts with a part of our eye known as the retina, a light-sensitive tissue that turns these wavelengths into electrical signals. These are then sent to the brain's optic nerve, where they are turned into images. And hey presto, you now know what color this tiger is. But why is this tiger orange? Why is my skin white and my hair blonde? Well, for many animals, their color is determined by a pigment known as melanin, which gives our skin, hair, and eyes their color. But not blue eyes. They're caused by some structural differences in the eye that reflect blue light. Apart from that, a lot of the color seen in animals is caused by melanin. The differences in these colors are based on the pigment density within an area, aided by structures called melanosomes that produce, store, and transport melanin. These structures come in two forms that dictate what color will be shown. The first are eumelanosomes, which are ellipsoid in shape and produce colors ranging from black to brown. The second are what are known as phenomelanosomes, which are spherical in shape and produce colors ranging from red to orange. These two structures give animals their color, and depending on their density and arrangement within an area is what will determine the color. Now, if the name of these structures sounds familiar, that's probably because you've heard about them in association with extinct animals, particularly dinosaurs, and being able to tell what color they were. Researchers in 2008 studied fossilized feathers from Brazil, and they noticed small spots within the fossil after looking at it under an electron microscope. Initially, these were written off as being bacteria. However, further study revealed that these spots were melanosomes based on structural similarities. This meant that, using the shape of the structures and their density and placement, the researchers could tell what color these feathers were. Following this, previous and future finds were found to have similar structures that told us what color these animals would have been when alive. Most notably, 3 relatively complete fossils of the dinosaurs Microraptor, Psittacosaurus, and Sinosauropteryx, all of which were found to be an iridescent color, countershaded, and covered in stripes respectively. But why these particular color patterns? Did these patterns just suit these specific animals? Well, as with anything nature-related, it's a lot more complicated. Take the iridescent colors of Microraptor. This coloration occurs in many modern species as well, but the reason why these species are iridescent seemingly varies between them, with it playing a role in mate choice in butterflies, an indicator of age in birds, and species recognition in guppies. So yeah, it's not a clear picture. But what about countershading? Well, this one has a more concrete reason behind it. Initially, it was believed that discoloration helped an animal blend into an environment by concealing an animal's shadows. This was first put forward by Abbott Henderson Thayer, who suggested that the subtle change from dark to white helped to obscure an animal into the background better than if it was one solid color. This idea, though, didn't stand the test of time. And the more modern idea is that this idea of background matching only applies to flying and marine mammals. Why these two? Well, the spaces these animals occupy leaves them prone to attack from above and below. So, the darker coloration above helps the animals blend in with the darker colors below, and the lighter underbelly will blend in with the brighter colors above. I mean, who wouldn't struggle to see something if they were staring at the sun? But what about these countershaded animals on the land? Well, their countershading is thought to be the result of said sun. While melanin plays a role in determining the color of an animal, it also serves a second purpose: protecting animals' cells from UV rays given off by the sun. So, the theory is that most land animals are darker on top because this part of the animal is exposed to more sunlight. As a result, this area is flooded with more melanin in order to protect it. So, we have an explanation for iridescence and countershading. But what about the third pattern I mentioned? Stripes. Like the previous two examples, their function is different depending on the species that has them. Let's use two modern animals to illustrate this: the zebra and our good friend, the tiger. For zebra, several theories behind its barcode pattern have been given. Still, thankfully, in recent years, the actual function has become more apparent, with their use said to be to protect the animal from flies. Now, this may sound confusing, but stick with me here. This idea started when a study in 2019 reported that compared to horses with singular colored coats, zebras had fewer flies land or even make contact with them. So, to test why this might be, another study in 2022 looked at the temperature these stripes produced. This was because the paper hypothesized that flies, who use temperature to find blood vessels, would find it harder to find said vessels because the black stripes would produce a large amount of heat that would confuse the flies. This was correct, as flies often landed on these stripes once they're heated, and usually perform unsuccessful bites to get blood. This would then lead to zebras either swatting or biting the flies. A nasty end indeed. So that's the answer for the prey, but what about the predators? Well, for tigers, it's a little different. Not to say they don't have to worry about flies as much as zebras do. Still, the evolutionary pressures for their stripes were forced by subtlety rather than annoyance. Subtlety? An orange and black cat is hardly subtle, I hear you say. Well, to us, no. But in order to see this subtlety in action, we have to look from the perspective of the tiger's prey rather than a more sight-gifted prey. Most of the tiger's prey have what is known as dichromatic vision, meaning they have difficulty discerning the difference between specific colors, most notably red and green. This means most prey have difficulty picking out oranges from a primarily green background. Along with this, the tiger's stripes also help to hide the animal, as the stripes help to break up the animal's shape against its background. See, our brains pick things out of an environment by scanning for edges, such as changes in color. So these stripes make it look like there are edges within the edges. All of which means that for their prey, a tiger doesn't look like this, but this. Yeah, it's pretty hard to spot now. But why do some animals see this and others see this? Well, that results from proteins called opsins, which are coded to read certain wavelengths of colors. These proteins can be traced back over 500 million years to the Cambrian period. These first color seers possessed 4 of these opsins, allowing them to see a wide range of color wavelengths, including ultraviolet. This is known as tetrachromacy. This has been retained in the fishes, reptiles, and birds of today. Why? Well, again, there are several theories that include foraging, sexual selection, and communication. But this field has been said to need more research. This was lost in mammals, however, as, on average, our group only possesses 2 opsins, meaning many animals would be classed as colorblind. The reason for this loss is something known as the nocturnal bottleneck theory. This states that because mammals were nocturnal animals early in their evolution, they relied less on their sight, so they lost 2 of these opsins, becoming dichromatic. But this isn't the case for all mammals, as, well, we aren't dichromatic. Instead, we're trichromatic, meaning we somehow got back one of our opsins. How did this happen? Well, opsins are coded for by our chromosomes. Of the 3 we and most primates have, the blue is coded by 1, and the green and red are coded for by the X chromosome. For many years of their evolution, primates had only 2 opsins. Until, some time ago, the gene that coded for the green opsin underwent several mutations to the point that it produced another opsin that could pick up red wavelengths of color, thus allowing us to see a broader range of colors. Now, if you'll indulge me for a second, I want to talk about primate color vision, because, personally, it's a lot of fun. Now, trichromacy isn't universal for all primates. As mentioned, humans have trichromatic vision. This is a trait that is shared with most of the old world monkeys and, strangely, howler monkeys. Strange because the rest of the New World monkeys only have dichromatic vision. But this variety doesn't stop here, as lemurs are probably the strangest when it comes to this. As mentioned, the X chromosome usually codes for the red and green opsins. However, the X chromosome in lemurs only codes for one of these opsins, meaning it could be either red or green. This is where it becomes cool because the X chromosome can only code for one opsin. This means that male lemurs will only be dichromatic because they possess XY chromosomes. However, females have 2 chances to have trichromatic vision, because with females possessing 2 X chromosomes, they might either have both code for the same opsin or code for 2 different ones. This means that females can be either dichromats or trichromats, which means there is variation in color vision between members of the same species. And that is why I love the natural world. It's just so bizarre. And if you want to learn about other notable things from the natural world, click the videos on the screen. Until next time, bye bye.